Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Michaela Peters. It's really funny because I think that my dogs know that I'm leaving today to go on a little trip because they're being extra kind of clingy. So I have Diesel right now who's usually just chilling, trying to be on my lap as well. Okay, anyway, it's a bit of a side introduction, but today I'm going to talk more about what my life has been like living in New Jersey versus what my life was like when I lived in Texas, because I think it is interesting to compare what life feels like in different states because I think it is pretty different. So I think that's a good question. This is also a reminder that this is going to be my last video of the week, and I'll come back next week after my vacation is over. Yay, because I need one of those. I am super burnt out from working 2 jobs all summer. I'm so tired. Okay, so New Jersey versus Texas. I think it's important to keep in mind that New Jersey is very closely located to New York. So what does that mean? Well, New York has one of the fastest paces of life in the entire world. I don't even know what's faster, probably something like somewhere in China or maybe another Asian country where they're even more into working, but working is the thing. And as I explained in my other videos, that's why I kind of avoid people, because everything feels like it's so centered towards working and being productive that, social interactions sometimes just feel like they're slowing you down. It's a sad reality, but it is my perception of what life is like here. Now in Texas, I feel like people were less time is money oriented and much more just out there enjoying life. To illustrate that better, some of the houses in Texas, like if you get a nice house for $500,000, which is what any house basically where I live costs, that's a house that here, where I live in New Jersey, would probably cost in the millions of dollars. So people have a very high standard of living in Texas in terms of they have very nice houses. And because, especially in Houston where I lived, there's the oil industry, which is a very lucrative industry, I guess you could say. That means that, people are living in nice houses, people have good jobs, they have high income, and they can afford to do things. So the whole traditional wife stays at home thing, I would say, is much more common there than it would be in a more expensive place to live like New Jersey. I also saw a lot of people who were pretty young, like my age when I was living there. I first went to NASA when I was 21 years old, and those people were already having kids, and I was like, wow, I don't see anybody in New Jersey doing that. So that was very different. They say that everything is bigger in Texas, and that is totally true. There are all these 5-lane highways. Everybody likes to drive a pickup truck. Ford F-150s are everywhere. People are very aggressive drivers there. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think that people in New Jersey can be aggressive drivers, but it's a little bit different because I think that in New Jersey people are just so in a rush all the time that they're not really aggressive because just to be aggressive and to socially communicate while driving. There's a whole theory on this. But they're aggressive more so because time is money and they're trying to get to where they need to go. It's just there's a general impatience about people here. And you feel that everywhere. Like at the restaurant, I have to be super quick with people. Then occasionally you get some people who actually want to stand around and talk to you, but then I may not necessarily be open to that because I have other things I need to be doing. So, yeah, you just feel a general sense of urgency constantly being in New Jersey. And I don't even want to know how much worse it feels in New York City because I did kind of, when I was younger, feel that maybe I needed to go live in New York City for like 6 months or something just to make myself get used to it and, conquer that fear. But then I started looking at how expensive it was, and I'm like, if I don't want to be here, there's no point. I know some people who love it, they think it's like the best thing ever, they never want to leave. Nope, not me. I grew up going there quite a bit, so it's not really special, which is always such a weird thing when you're traveling. People are like, wow, New York City, and you're like, that's cool that other people think that it's cool, but I definitely do not like it. Like, I'll go there when I need to for certain things or to see people, or, yeah, there's a very specific reason why I'm going there, but I don't just go there to go there for fun. It's too expensive. Like I explained, it's like getting in and out of there is already at least $30 or more, and then if you try to buy any food, it's more expensive, or just do anything expensive. So I'm easily always dropping at least $100 a day if I just go to New York City for the day. So I try to avoid going unless it's, again, for a very specific purpose. However, being in New Jersey is convenient due to the fact that you have a lot of major airports near you. We have EWR, which is Newark, not to be confused with New York. Newark, New Jersey, and that's an international airport. I mostly fly out of there pretty much all the time. I used to have to fly to Kyrgyzstan from JFK, and yeah, JFK is in New York City. And then there's also LaGuardia. that's very inconveniently located. However, it's close-ish, and then there's Philadelphia. And these are all within a like 2 mile, not 2 mile, that would be crazy, a 2 hour driving range of me. So that's pretty convenient. I just listed 4 major airports, all very close to me. International airports. So when I was living in Texas, it was like there was one international airport that was an hour from me, and then there was a not international one, so a domestic one that was 20 minutes from me, and yeah, that was convenient-ish. Also, the parking to park your car at the international airport in Texas was so cheap. It was amazing. I would never drive to the one here, but then again, Texas has no public transportation. I mean, yes, that's all of the US, but Houston is such a big area. You would think that they would have more public transportation than they do, honestly. Obviously, New York has public transportation. New Jersey, it does have the train line. So there is a train that I take every time I go to New York City, and it takes like an hour and a half. So we have we have NJ Transit, as I talked about already, but in one of my videos, but yeah, New Jersey Transit, it's the train company, I guess, of New Jersey. And yeah, it exists, but taking buses around town and stuff where you can drive, like, no, you're not going to be doing that. I feel very lucky that in New Jersey we don't have that bad of traffic because everything is very small scale and close to you. I felt like in Texas I had to drive a lot further, or not necessarily further, but just wait in a lot of traffic for a lot more stuff, or just there were constantly way more cars around and everything's just built out so much bigger and wider. And Texas has so many strip malls, which I honestly think they're kind of ugly. I had a friend's visit from LA. I mean, LA can be pretty. I think San Diego is the most beautiful city in the US out of any of the ones I've been to. But, she came to Houston. She's like, it's so ugly here. I couldn't live here. And I'm not going to deny that I don't think Texas is very aesthetically pleasing. Actually, once I started spending more time not in New Jersey, each time I would come back from NASA or like when I was abroad in Kyrgyzstan, even though I think Kyrgyzstan has cool nature and stuff, but I don't love being in a city in general, I had a newfound appreciation for where I live in New Jersey. We have nice not national, but county parks. Like, there's a lot of nature around me. I live close to the beach. I have pretty not national. Oh my gosh. This has been happening to me a lot recently. This is why I need a break. Pretty county parks that I can go run in, which is my favorite hobby. And I don't know, I just think it's kind of beautiful here. Like, it's called the Garden State, and yeah, there's a lot of greenery, and you don't get all that quite the same out west. And I think because New Jersey is pretty and it's close to New York City and it's a desirable place to live, that's why it's so in demand and expensive here. There's also the whole theory about, people immigrate primarily, like, first come to New York, and then New Jersey is like the next stop when you want to own a house. So yeah, and in Texas, okay, let's talk about the way the people behave in the general public, because that is very different. Funny story is that I remember when I was a kid and I transferred, like, I moved schools, and I was in Maryland originally, and then I was in New Jersey, and I remember kids didn't say thank you when you passed back the paper. Like, they would send piles of paper, stacks of paper, and you would hand it to the person behind you and they're supposed to say thank you. And in New Jersey, nobody did that. And I was like, wow, you can get away with talking less here. I really like that. And now that, I'm talking about the autism thing, I'm like, kind of makes sense why I just don't want to have meaningless interactions with people, because I just feel like it's a waste of social energy, maybe. But I really like that. Like, I didn't have to talk to people that much. And some people consider that rude. Like, I think everywhere else in the US, people who are from New Jersey are rude. And I don't necessarily think it's rude. It's just that people don't talk if there's not a reason to talk. And then you go to Finland, and that's on a whole nother level. Like, you do not need to talk to people in Finland unless there's a reason. In fact, I was super surprised and almost weirded out every time a random Finn would talk to me out of turn. But it's usually an older person, low-key, and sadly, I figure they were kind of lonely and were just, trying to make a connection with somebody, and I'm... people consider me pretty approachable, so they talk to me. And, it's fine. And then I'd be like, sorry. I was like, I don't speak Finnish. And then they would just give up on trying to talk to me. So, yeah, I like that in New Jersey, you don't, have to talk to people. Even when I'm going running, I don't necessarily have to say hi to people. I mean, maybe you just do kind of like that, or like a throw your hand up, hey, kind of thing, but you don't like have to engage. But in Texas, it's very like you really have to engage with people. And at first, because I moved there and I was alone, I kind of liked it because it made me feel less lonely. But I think if I were there like longer term, it would totally drain me. I mean, it's so like random. They just like when I was in Whataburger, which is like the McDonald's of Texas, because it doesn't really exist anywhere else unless they started expanding to Florida, like the Buc-ee's. Yeah, Buc-ee's is another thing. Yeah, Texas has these really brand specific things that are very unique to Texas. And they're kind of cool if I'm being honest, but yeah, I went into a Whataburger and they're like, "Have you been here before?" And I'm like, "No, it's my first time." And then they're giving me recommendations on what to order and like where am I from and why am I there and everything, which again, it wasn't necessarily bad. It's just that like, wow, it's just a lot of interaction. And there's a sort of like Southern hospitality thing, but I think the issue that I had with that was I soon learned that it's sometimes not really very genuine and it can be kind of fake. I mean, I'm not sure if I came to that conclusion myself or if people started telling me that. Probably the latter, because I don't think I could really tell. Um, but yeah, it just felt like people, it's also so hard because it's like I was alone there, whereas I'm not alone in New Jersey. So I just feel like my time is super divided because I have so much family here. And, I'm mostly spending a lot of my social energy interacting with my family versus in Texas, it was like maybe I was more open to seeking out relationships or interactions with people because of the fact that like I was alone living there. And don't get me wrong, I did have my whole cohort of NASA people I was interning with. And I mean, I'm still friends or keep in touch with quite a few of them, a lot of which are still in the area. But yeah, I think the scope and the scale and people being more laid back, relaxed, and friendly, it's totally different. And also in Texas, you have a lot more like Mexican influence because of being so close to the border, maybe just Hispanic in general, but I'd say primarily Mexican. And I remember the joke that my brother said. He's like, it would be sacrilegious to eat at Chili's in Texas when you have Tex-Mex, like real Tex-Mex. And I was like, now, I get what you're saying, and yeah, there's a lot of good food in Texas, but it's not always healthy, and that was the thing. I feel like there was so much fast food in Texas, like, I was like, oh my gosh, I've never seen this much fast food in my life. So maybe, I think in some ways it might be harder to live a healthier lifestyle in Texas. I also remember I would go running at random parks, and then there was one park where there was a sign that was like, beware of wild boars, like pigs, and then apparently they like charge at you, those run at you. And I remember seeing the sign, I was like so scared. I was like, am I not supposed to run in this park anymore? And I was freaking out. So yeah, and then like weird bugs. Like we don't really have weird bugs like that where I live. And in Texas, you have to get your house sprayed with like bug spray on the exterior of it every year to make it so that bugs don't try to get into your house. Like there's just that kind of stuff. I mean, aside from the weather, I really what I've learned about living in Finland and living in Texas and living in New Jersey is that I can go colder than New Jersey. I cannot do hotter than New Jersey. So at the point at which, I may or may not relocate my home base in the US to another state, it's not going to be in the South. Like people are like, if you want a slower pace of life, just go to the South. And I'm like, I'd rather die than deal with that weather. Like it was so hot. And I remember I'd be in Houston. I would be at NASA up until May. And then I would start asking myself, like, it's just getting too hot. I don't think I could be here for the summer. Like, I don't think I could deal with it. And I think that, probably played a role. I'm like, yeah, this is NASA. Yeah, this is cool. Aside from the fact that I like my job now more, but I was just like, I don't know that I want to, like, live in a place like this for years and years and be stuck here in the summer. Like, I think I'm going to go crazy. I can't handle it. I don't like being sweaty. Unless I'm, like, outside and I'm tanning, which I do here in the summer, or like there's a pool nearby, but no, just like in general with it being really hot. So I mean that's all just like a personal preference thing. And yeah, I mean culturally I just listed a bunch of things. I think the other thing with New Jersey is it's very like live and die. People are born in New Jersey, they're very loyal to New Jersey. Texas, there's so many transplants. So like people who were not born in Texas, who end up in Texas. And Houston is a much more transient city. So you have a lot of people who will move there, and then move out of there, and then all that. New Jersey, it's like, you don't really get a lot of transitory people. It's like, those people have been here for a while. Like, my mom's family, my grandmother has lived in the same two towns her entire life. Also, my other grandmother has too, but that's in Maryland. But anyway, yeah, people don't really like to just move for no reason. But also, I think that with some people who are more opportunity seeking or like achievement oriented, maybe they're going to want to move around a lot for different job opportunities. That was what brought me to Texas, obviously. I don't think I would just randomly decide to move to Texas. Yeah, and it's also kind of, I think another thing too, so like I have talked a little bit more in Russian about being a religious person, but maybe where I live here, I feel like that's more of a private thing. And, this is kind of a Finnish person approach too. Like, your relationship with God is your own relationship with God, and they don't really want to talk as openly about religion. But, New Jersey, it's more of like, I will approach the subject if it comes up or people start asking me questions, but it's not something I just think is okay to start talking about randomly. And I don't think that people in New Jersey are very religious. I think it's like most people are maybe like have a Catholic background or they're called Creasters, like go to I heard about this one time when I was at this other job I had. They go to church on Christmas and Easter only. So there are a lot of people who have like this religious affiliation, but they're not really like actively practicing. However, in Texas, it's like, yeah, people go to church on Sunday. There are all these religious books and scriptures like everywhere, and it's really like a big deal, being Christian there. They care a lot about it, and they're pretty open about it and very proud of it. And that's definitely a culture shock. Like, I was like, okay, interesting. I mean, that didn't really change how I interact with people from my own standpoint of like me discussing my beliefs and everything, but yeah, like I remember people would try to engage me in those conversations a lot more, and I was like, okay, this is interesting. Which, I mean, I think in a way that's kind of cool because, then you're getting to the meat of more existential issues. I think that maybe in New Jersey people look more towards politics for having those kinds of meaningful discussions. And yeah, I'm not a big political person, so in a lot of ways to people in the Northeast, I can maybe come across as very, like disengaged and you're not doing your civic duty by caring about politics, but that's just how it is. So those things are different. Whereas it feels like in Texas, politics are tied more towards unioned with the fact that people are religious. And so then the assumption is that all your values are conservative. Whereas maybe for me, even though I'm religious, I'm also still very progressive maybe in my views because of the fact that I received so much education. So I'm kind of in this weird like in between thing, which maybe again that's why I don't necessarily like to talk about this to everybody. But yeah, in Texas it's like you just talk about that stuff. And then there's sort of this because I think people commented this in my Russian videos like down below those, but people aren't necessarily atheists just because they're science people. Like, I actually found that a lot of the people I worked with at NASA were very religious and very open about it. And yeah, I think that that's normal given the fact that in Texas, which still most of your workforce at NASA is coming from Texas because you're in Texas, like those people by default of what that region is like are going to be more religious. I don't know what it would be like if I worked at a NASA center in Virginia or Washington D.C. or Maryland or California. I have no idea, but Texas is just, it is like that. It is a lot more like conservative, because I guess that's a weird thing, especially to Europeans, is that in the US we're so polarized with political views, like, oh, you're either a Republican and you're all this, or a Democrat and you're all that, and I don't subscribe to either, which I know is people are like, what? And I'm like, that's how it is. And yeah, so I mean, I'm gonna say that, and then yeah, I'm sure people will not like that, but that's how it is. And yeah, so, but those are different things, right? Because, New Jersey, even though I think the county I live in swings a little bit more Republican, New Jersey is a Democratic state, usually, and Texas is a Republican state. So I would say that general aura of how that influences the way that the culture is in that state is different. Also, certain things like social programs are more prominent in a Democratic state. So, for example, when it was COVID and I was unemployed and I couldn't go back to the restaurant, I was able to collect unemployment money. If I were living in Texas, that probably wouldn't be the case because they didn't really give out unemployment money like that. New Jersey was just giving it out like crazy. So that was, that's a different thing. So also public schools. New Jersey has some of the best public schools in the entire country. Whereas in Texas, and if you live in the South, a lot of times the public schools are not very good. So if you're somewhat affluent, somewhat keyword, you're probably going to send your kid to a charter school or a private school and pay for them to go there. And this is so confusing to me because I'm like, well, why would I pay taxes for my kid to go to a public school and then them not go to it? Well, guess what? If you're in Texas, you don't pay state taxes. So where's the money going? I don't know. It's very different. So I guess that's everything. There's also a lot more homelessness in Texas, maybe because it's warm all year round. And also I was near a city, so that's probably natural. But yeah, I mean, that's a lot of how it affected me or what I thought. And, if the weather wasn't such a big deal, I think I could deal with living there for sure, but I can't deal with it being that hot. I can't do it. That's why I'm fine with Finland. I can deal with the cold. I can't deal with the hot. So, yeah. But hopefully that's interesting. I know that was very loaded and lengthy. And again, I'm doing my mini vacation until next week's, and I'm so excited. And I need some more inspiration for topics, so please continue asking me questions. I don't know what other stuff I can talk about in terms of comparisons. Maybe I can talk about Maryland or something, or I'm trying to think. I've been to a lot of states also. I have a great idea for our next video, and I'm curious to see if you want to hear about this. I can talk about all the traumatic experiences I've had traveling alone as a woman in the US. Maybe not necessarily alone, but the ones where I've been alone and then had a weird interaction with somebody randomly. Specifically, this used to happen a lot in Alabama, the meme state. Yes, Alabama is a weird place. I don't like it. Sorry if anybody here is from Alabama. And if you have had a good experience in Alabama, I would really like to hear it because maybe it could change my mind. Alabama, maybe West Virginia was kind of weird. I mean, it's got a lot of pretty stuff, but I think one of the issues is when you start getting very in the middle of the US, there's a lot more drug use issues, and that freaks me out, and I don't like that. I mean, I know it's everywhere, but it just felt a lot more overt when I was in some of these more middle of nowhere places. Okay, so yeah, maybe I'll talk about that next time. It's good I have an idea for next week. All right, well, thank you, everybody. I hope this was interesting, and thank you again for your continued support of my channel. I'm so glad that people find some of this stuff interesting, even though I know my Russian videos are the ones that actually get all the views and the followers, or subscribers. I still call it a follower, don't know why. Yeah. All right, so thank you again, and until next week, I hope everybody has a very nice weekend. I know I'm going to have a nice weekend because I get to go to the beach. Okay. All right, until next week. Thank you, everybody. Goodbye.